Hey, yo, what's going on, guys? Tucker here, and today we are talking about Tarantula, the brand new Series 5 card releasing this week. That is a 2-cost, 2-powered card with the ability, end of turn, if you have the highest power among cards in play, give this and 2 cards in your hand plus 1 power. So this is an on-the-board scaler as well as a hand buffer. But you might be wondering, what cards synergize really well with this? One of my initial thoughts, of course, is Wilson Fisk. This card does have a very similar text to Tarantula, since it looks at both your side of the board and your opponent's side of the board. If you both have the same highest power amongst cards in play, Wilson Fisk still gets discounted, which also means that Tarantula would still buff himself as well as 2 other cards in your hand. Other cards that would synergize well with Wilson Fisk, something like a Rocks deck here with Ozymandias, which of course the first deck we have on screen here is the Prio Spider deck, which is very similar, of course, to the typical kind of package you're seeing right now for some of these super giant things. We have swapped out Ascani-san and put in Tarantula to give you some more of those initial buffs, and it gives you a little bit less RNG than like Ascani-san would, since you don't necessarily know what kind of card, of course, Ascani-san is going to drop. You know what cost, but you don't know what card is going to be generated. This lets you know what power is getting added to cards, even though it is still RNG because it's 2 cards, but allows you to see actually in hand and on board with a board scaler and a hand scaler. I think this works really well. The next list we have, of course, I think of other synergies with this card would be stuff like Scar things. Of course, you know, Scar gets discounted when cards have 10 or more power on the board, and you have cards like a Red Skull, Typhoid Mary, Starbrand, and even Ares, since you have a lot of big power scalar cards in this deck, allowing you to be able to hit that kind of mark here with your Tarantula to be able to continue to add buffs to your hand, continue to add buffs to Tarantula himself, and you also have just big power that I think your opponent really has to mess around with. You have Energy Cheat here, also with Luna Snow, allowing you to play out more of these combo pieces as well, and then just big power cards. Maybe you are playing Ebony Maw, maybe you are playing Lizard, just to have some of those bigger tempo cards in order to get more of those Tarantula pops. And you also have, of course, Techno Organic Virus in here to add power to cards as well, getting them closer to that 10 power threshold, of course, to discount your Scar. Milk could actually be interesting with Tarantula because you have a lot of different big powered cards you can be playing to be able to have the biggest power on the board, and you also have tech to mitigate what your opponents are playing. Shang-Chi, of course, to also turn off or just destroy some of those cards that have been buffed as well. And if you, of course, have buffed some of these cards in hand, like Gladiator getting +1 power from a Tarantula, makes him a 3/9. So then when Gladiator's ability goes off, it's a 3/9 that checks to see if it can destroy your opponent's card, which is going to be better more often than not than a 3/8, which of course 3/8 is pretty decent right now in the meta, but I think at a higher threshold, like getting buffs from Tarantula, this card could actually be another good focal piece. You are also running a bunch of different cards to destroy cards, whether it's Lady Deathstrike, Killmonger, like we were talking about, and Misery, in order to get some of your death value cheaper. You also are milling your opponent with Cable, Baron Zemo, Gladiator, which of course have very solid base stat lines, a 2/4 for Cable, a 3/5 for Baron Zemo, a 3/8 for Gladiator, even if you don't get that buff with Tarantula. And then you have Strife in here. You might be wondering, why do you have Strife in here? But you're playing a bunch of different unreveal cards, and Strife hitting a Lady Deathstrike could be really good for you to be able to kind of Lady Deathstrike a lane early, or maybe you're Lady Deathstriking a lane later and being able to play like a Hood as well, so you're able to destroy that and still get the value instead of having to play Lady Deathstrike. It's like a cheaper way to get some of these honor reveals to go off, or better ways to get these honor reveals to go off later in the game, or honor reveals to go off earlier. Like a lot of really interesting pieces. I think Strife actually is very interesting in this style deck. But this is the gist of kind of the decks we have going on here. Like I said, we have this Mill deck. We also have this Dino Spider, which is a Sauron version, of course, having big cards to be able to get you some of that Tarantula value. And then, of course, the typical kind of super giant thing, which I think all 3 of these decks are going to work well, especially with Tarantula's ability, which once again is end of turn. If you have the highest power amongst cards in play, give Tarantula +1, as well as 2 cards in your hand +1 power. And now we're going to go ahead and jump into some examples of gameplay as well. This game, we actually have a really great start. Having the highest power on the board, getting an Ozymandias from Iron Patriot as well. This is what Tarantula is going to look like in action. See, as at end of turn, he buffs himself and 2 random cards in your hand. As you can see here, Tarantula even procs at the very end of the game. Tarantula has the same exact power as Quicksilver here, which still enables us to get the buff onto 2 random cards and set up some other good potential plays later on. which we're going to be playing Starbrand out here to continue the Tarantula buffs. This situation here, we have set up a very great combo here to be able to get Tarantula value. Of course, we have Gladiator and Misery that are going to have the most power on the board, which procs Tarantula, allowing me to give these additional buffs to my hand. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. My name is Tucker, Tuccrr. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. It's been real. God bless, and Tucker out.